Wszystko zaczęło się od króla Jagiełły. Mała Łodzia stała się miastem, które w XIX wieku rozwijało się najszybciej na świecie. W ciągu zaledwie 60 lat od powstania pierwszej manufaktury powstaje przemysłowa, wielonarodowościowa metropolia. Jednak wiatry historii nie zawsze jej sprzyjały. To, co zniszczył los, odbudowują łodzianie. Nasza Łódź. Miasto wielkich szans. Od 600 lat w sercu Polski i Europy.
Jesteśmy Polakami. Jesteśmy niezwykłym społeczeństwem. Zawsze w obliczu wielkiego wyzwania potrafimy się mobilizować. Potrafimy stawić czoła wielkim wyzwaniom. Bo nie potrafimy stać obojętnie. Bo obchodzi nas bezpieczeństwo i przyszłość naszych dzieci. Bo wierzymy, że nadzieja zwycięża apatię, lęk i strach. Bo mimo wszelkich przeciwności nigdy się nie poddajemy. Potrafimy ciężko pracować, wspierać się i działać razem. Bo zależy nam na naszej ojczyźnie, naszym osiedlu, naszej ulicy. Bo chcemy naszych niezbywalnych praw i wolności. Bo nie oddamy naszych marzeń. Nadchodzi punkt zwrotny.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this panel on how to rebuild public and private media. I'm Laurenz Van Ginneken. I'm a project officer for the European Liberal Forum. So we are the official political think tank of the ALDE party, who form together with the EDP and La République En Marche the Renew Europe group in the European Parliament. And I have here the honor to lead this panel as a moderator together with yes, we were still missing, by the way, one person, but she got stuck in traffic. But I think we can start right away. So I'm going to ask for the panelists maybe to introduce yourself, like in 1 or 2 minutes, just so, of course, like who you are, what you do in your private life, and then afterwards we will, private life or professional life, my apologies. And then we can actually start off this panel. And I will start here with Dr. Miłosz Hodun.
Teraz, dzięki.
Now it's working. I'll be speaking Polish. My name is Miłosz Hodun. I'm a board member of European Liberté Forum, the same organization Laurenz belongs to, and I'm president of the foundation in Poland. Good morning, Jakub Kocjan, Democratic Action board member, and I'm into rule of law and new and old authoritarian rule. Maia Mazurkiewicz. I'm an expert on disinformation, behavioral changes, and a co-founder of Stratcom Alliance for Europe. Good morning, Piotr Pacewicz, a founder and editor-in-chief of Oko Press, the portal that has been there since 2016.
We could start with you, Piotr, because if I'm correct, you are a journalist for almost 40 years right now, so you have seen how the media transitions from the communist regime to the democratic regime and to what we are seeing today of more becoming a liberal regime. Did you actually, like, how did you feel those reforms throughout those 40 years? Does it feel like a roller coaster where you were going up slowly and then actually it went down very quickly? Or how did it impact your life and your work as a journalist?
No, do pewnego stopnia.
To some extent, I'm experiencing a déjà vu because I started in underground Solidarity Mazowsze Weekly, which was a clandestine type of media. It came as a paradox that it's very much in common with the portal that I'm responsible for. It is civic journalism, as I call it, because it's published by the team itself. In case of Okopres, it's a foundation. In the case of Mazowsze, it was not specified back then. Not only you didn't have to register, you were not allowed back then to register. And the basis of this team's existence is a strong internalized mission that is much more than journalistic mission. It's not only about giving the truth. Between you and me, this kind of conviction of the English journalism that journalism is about writing the truth is false. If we look at Pulitzers, the Pulitzer Prize is given to journalists who write the truth, but they deal with difficult problems. They support the weak ones. They reveal the iffy business, monkey business of the ruling parties. They support the civic society. And another thing that this brings together is that they are financed. It's like you standing in the street playing your violin and there is a hat and people give as much as they want. So it is at their discretion. It is important that there's no paywall and the access is granted to everybody, even to those who do not pay. So those who pay give Okopres to those who do not have money. And there are no ads, of course, which puts this kind of media in a different situation. A very specific way of being independent from politics. We've got a set of values, and I was thinking about our values and how to define them. The treaty's Article 2 defines it very well, and it's clear that Okopres reveals and shows the stark reality of what is happening in Poland. This authoritarian power, as Weber said, autocracy that is no longer elective autocracy because elections become less and less just, less and less democratic. It's a set of human rights and values and qualities. It becomes a tough question, migration, what is happening in Polish-Belarusian border. To share an anecdote, at yesterday's panel on disinformation, there was Civic Platform MP Joński saying that there are 250,000 migrants that were brought in to Poland from those countries. So it was the narrative that the opposition uses, quasi-xenophobic. And my editorial colleagues, Anka Mierzyńska, said, I don't want to labor this point, but when it comes to visas, it's about visas that were given to these people. There is so much turmoil that you are kindly requested not to use numbers for the sake of the discussion about disinformation. Thank you. And this thank you was like a blow. Another element of civic journalism that we realize. It is us getting rather mediocre pay. We are speaking about communist type of money. It's a bit of exaggeration. And we share money according to their needs. So these are the elements. It's easier to realize this model if the system you are in is more authoritarian.
On that point as well, because that would be a part of my next question indeed. But first of all, I would like to welcome our last panelist of today, Beata Chmiel. And actually, I just would like to ask you also to introduce you very shortly to the public, like maximum 1 minute.
Dzięki, Lord.
First and foremost, I'd like to apologize. Taxis in Poland work like any other means of transport. My name is Beata Chmiel. I'm Vice President of Film Women Association, but I'm one of the signatories of the Pact for Culture and initiator of Civic Pact for Media, and a member of the Shadow Cabinet of Congress of Women. Me and Agnieszka Holland, we are responsible for culture and public media.
Maybe to our youngest panelist, because we've indeed hear like a life story of the changing environments that Mr. Piotr had to go through throughout his life as a career. But I would actually like to ask you a question. Why did you start becoming actually an activist on this topic?
Myślę, że
I think that topic that we are speaking about, the media, is strongly associated with what is happening in Poland, and it's part of a broader global trend when we turn our backs on global liberal democracy. It's an attempt to describe the reality we are in here in Poland and many other countries. And I think that this breakthrough moment requires us to be more watchful and diligent in looking at the process. Also in the context of the media that we are speaking about, I started dealing with the rule of law question in 2017 when we organized a protest, the Chain of Lies, defending the Supreme Courts with called judicial organizations and similar. When for the first and last time we were able to slow down rather than to stop the process of destruction of democratic ones. At the level of the diagnosis, we know everything. We know what the rhetoric leads to, especially the rhetorics on the government regime type of TV. It's very interesting to have a debate in the recent month on the role of journalists in the country that's becoming authoritarian. It's not authoritarian yet, but there is an ongoing destruction process of democracy. There is symmetrism notion that this emotion trigger in the recent years, in the recent months or weeks. It's a very interesting question about the role of journalists, which boils down on the one hand, or is supposed to be boiled down to the question that it is the voice to the microphone that gives the floor to any party, regardless what they say. It may have less or more loose contact with reality, and on the other hand, there is the attempt to make this message party-like. It's a very interesting debate in the context of the public media that we are speaking about and the vision of the future. We need to halt this debate, and this debate cannot finish without giving the answer. Whether it is possible to give the option to use the platform by any political option. Is this the role of the journalist, or conversely, will journalists support any idea of the opposition in the face of the regime that is authoritarian or becoming authoritarian? It's important for the vision of public media in the future.
What you just finished with, and also with what Piotr finished with, because we heard here as well, because of the more and more becoming a liberal regime, and because of the sometimes the lies and the propaganda that you see on the national television, you see indeed like here an opportunity that people and journalists are making, like, you know, new ways of journalism, or like reinventing the way they have to work to actually combat that disinformation. Like why is it important also to like to restore, or what is the role of disinformation in the whole debate and the whole process that we're witnessing today when it comes to media here in Europe and also like here in Poland?
Ja, dziękuję bardzo za.
Thank you very much for this question. And I'm going to build on what the co-panelists said. Piotr, you compared your beginnings back 1990s to what is happening now. There are many converging lines and many differences at the same time. When speaking about the media, the differences is what we focus upon. We are not living at the times when you couldn't reach people, you couldn't communicate with them. We live in the place and time when people have plethora of information and therefore they cannot check this information, suck that in. They can't remember numbers. Speaking about numbers, it is not disinformation. Disinformation is targeted, intentional, and it impacts specific aspects. There is misinformation that we use. We all make mistakes. We cannot check everything. That is why we've got telephones in our pockets. This will be changing. Most people don't realize that. If we speak about the media, it's building trust. That is the role of the media, the basis of what we're speaking about. Platforms may want or may not want to have it. They squabble with different regulations, especially with the regulations from European Commission, because they are media, not only the platform for the media. So the role of the media is information. I agree that in the country and in the times we live in, if the rule of law is combated and the government that makes an assault on the freedom of the media, symmetrism is not the best solution, because we need to give space to those who don't have space, and public media give space to one party. So you need to have the possibility for other parties to show how they communicate. So I agree with this. And it is key to strengthen this media, not only to show the truth, but also to reach the very core of truth. This is still missing in Poland. We are short of money. And the system, that is important. Speaking about the system of public media is financing. Very often different media operate on click-bait principle. So financing is related to the fact that there is a very good article and a silly title that has no connections with what is inside, and it's clickable. So it's a dilemma. And I believe that these are the things that we should change. We should change as journalists. I'm not a journalist, I'm an activist. And we should change it in the media system, public media system too.
Miłosz, because you have you have written publications on polarization, on hate speech, on the usage of fear in media and in propaganda. Do you think, like, because like if we hear also some of the testimonies here, do you think actually that what we have witnessed the past few years with the hate speech, with those processes, that it really sparked a new way of thinking about media as well? Do we actually have an opportunity today of starting to restore the media landscape, but in a better way than it was in the past?
Chyba teraz. Tak. Dziękuję bardzo za to pytanie.
Thank you very much for the question. I would like to refer to the previous speaker about the trust. There are no public media without trust. So if we speak now, or politicians, experts discuss about the future of public media, the trust and the trust-generating role for the new media would be elementary. And if we, the citizens, contribute to the public media, we cannot do that to the media that do not build trust and community, but moreover they destroy these two, being just the loudspeaker of the propaganda and hatred. There is no space for that. Discussing a new public media, state-owned media, should be based on the trust platform. And further to Maia about money, if public media build the trust, make a platform for meeting. What do we have today? Public media. When we look through public media eyes to the world, we have two poles, or Poland, two tribes. We got further and further apart. Not only don't they build the trust, they blow up and polarize, atomize the society. And public media or trust-building media, well, trust brings money. If you trust a particular title, if you trust public media, it brings money. And further to Piotr Pacewicz, what is public media? When I think of public media, I do not think TVP and Polish radio. For me, public media is not state media. For me, Oko Press makes public media. This is the media that carries out the public mission. That's the media where journalists work who are trying to show the world as it comes. That's about the truth. But they also carry out the public mission, publicizing affairs, showing failures and criticize, and that brings money. I don't know whether the money is good enough. Luckily, yes, I can hear. Yes, but that's the moment of hope. If that in all that hopelessness of the media situation, public media in particular, so we have public media, not state-owned, which show how you can do it, how you can object to the hate. And how to build platform built on trust, not polarization. And this is the way for the reform of the future state-owned media. We cannot afford to have public state media to share the society. In my opinion, we have today learned that the new public media will not be rebuilt unless their key focus is building community trust and burying down the divisions between us.
Question for you, because I remember we talked yesterday also very briefly. We've now heard here a few elements on how to, the beginnings of to answer our question, how we could restore a model for public and private media, like a free media. But what should we actually do with, the state sender that, for example, TVP is, or if we look to Hungary, what happened there? Because some people, when I hear throughout the debate, some people are saying for the state television, pull the plug, start over. Others are saying make some reforms, pull the plug on some of their side channels, sort of make an audit internally to change the how's it called, to change the rotten apples, as we say in Dutch, and restore it to its former glory. Is it that easy? Can you just pull the plug, start over again, or start to reshuffle everything? Or what are your thoughts on it?
If it was that easy, we wouldn't be discussing it now, perhaps. The key problem is that the place where we are today with public media and the whole media landscape in Poland is not just a matter of the past 8 years. In fact, the history of that landscape began after 1989, where there was not enough trust to build civic thinking about public media. 15 years ago, more or less, the Civic Committee for Public Media was established, comprising Agnieszka Holland, for instance, and we drew up a bill for new media law was supposed to turn the table upside down. It was supposed to say that the public media is the media that, no matter of the form, electronic or regional or whatsoever, they carry out the public mission, which is financed from the public mission fund, regardless of the ownership status of the media. So from this public media fund was supposed to be allocated to printed media, TV, radio, all different ways to bring reliable information to the public. And it was not just financing for the information, because information is not the only point of public media. Public media should be a whole educational machinery, civic education, cultural education, as well as such basic education that equalizes opportunities no matter where the public live. And all public media should operate to level the opportunities of all those who contribute to their operations. Alas, that didn't work then, and today those who rejected this idea of the civic law wear civic hats today and say, let's get back to where we were. That's impossible. We'll never be back to Telewizja Polska, to Polskie Radio, whatever we had before 2015. Also because we are in a totally different world in terms of civilization. We've gone through another revolution in terms of media and technology. We are not just through splitting tribes. We do not have common tools. So those who are thinking about changing the public media, they shouldn't think of it as regain the media for us. We should think how to make it that everybody has a share in public media, which means we need to get rid of the division between the media, the ways of reaching. So not only those with aerials on the roof can create the public media, have access to public media. And I need to mention one thing here. The only initiative which I unwillingly praise, because we should cut off from state-owned obywatel, and the project mentioned by infamous Minister Cieszyński of embedding citizens' media services into public services. I mean here, access to public media access is to build a mechanism which will relieve us of direct impact of any party, any politician, to the type of information we are presented with. Well, Beata is an excellent expert on how we can reform the law on the National Council of Radio and Television and what we can do with public TV. From my point of view and my experience, no matter how anachronic or surprising I may sound, I believe there are three things you need to say. Great assumptions to be taken to think to keep the public TV or public media, because I absolutely support their existence. That's pretty obvious, I believe. First of all, we need to reduce the influence from politicians. There are different concepts for that. Without going into detail, there are ideas to do that. Secondly, you need to reduce the impact of money. And this may be far more difficult because public television naturally competes with commercial TVs, and that spins up. As a result, we have the Italian public TV that is composed of stupid contests and games and groups of singing people. Well, singing, to be frank. And this is the second issue. The third problem, and that is what you said, we are in a new landscape, media landscape is to avoid what is stupid on the internet. I don't know if you know, there were some Eurobarometer surveys that and showed that Poles are highly distrustful to public media, but they trust electronic media. The trust they put in the internet is declared by 51% of Poles, while average European is 35%. Trust in social media is declared by 42% against 20% in the EU. We are the only country, save for Greece, which trusts social media more than traditional media. On the one hand, it's a great opportunity for all of us here, like Eco Press. On the other hand, it's a bloody threat, because we get information what is most viewed on the net. That's rubbish. 10th, 15th place may be occupied by some key political news. So in brief, we need to invent how to reduce political power, money power, how to guarantee protection from stupidity, and fourthly, and I'm addressing my experience here, how to educate editorial teams, how to set the work of editorial teams so that they work per civic values and public interest.
Wydaje mi się,
I believe that the whole conversation or deleting TVP or TVP info that is in the public debate, well, I understand the emotions. People who say, you can't, there is so much poison in it, you need to behead it, bury it, never to see it again. I understand the emotions, but I believe that such solutions like get rid of, build something new, opt for a new name, new face, are solutions opted for by populists. That's like removing middle schools in Poland or digging paths in the peninsula. The other party thinks about systemic solutions. We've heard some theses what would be needed to make the TVP, Polish radio, or public media to make sense. And I'd like to mention that the reality we live in is different than in 1990s or even in 2000s. And thinking about rebuilding public media through the prism of channels or stations makes no sense. Whether to terminate TVP or whether TVP should have 4, 7, 12 channels, it's anachronic. If we keep thinking like this, we can think how to build a museum of Polish television rather than true Polish television. The solution is not just that public media compete against other private stations, but by with cooperation through media platforms that provide entertainment and information. And I believe this is also the future for TVP, Polish radio, this conglomerate of public media, thinking in terms of platforms, how to build a platform that would deliver content to the people and which will grant access to vast archives of the Polish television. Back to the money issue. This may be a way how to finance public media. If we have access to a platform, you can name many that you use, that would be on a similar level, that will deliver content that is already produced, and TV still, Polish TV still produces a lot of content pretty valuable frequently. Well, I believe we will want to be ready to pay for it. We will not discuss the subscription fee, whether it's forced or not, who pays, who doesn't. but creating a quality platform is the future. I don't know if it should be with the m-Obywatel platform, but there are state-owned media in Europe and outside that opt for platformization, and it works. People like it, people want to use it, people are ready to pay for it. So I wouldn't like us to think about new state media in an outdated way, but in a modern way, and see what's happening around, what the competitors are doing to be competitive. Maia, well, building on that, because the reality is different. In 2 years, we will be living in another reality because technologies change faster. When we speak of public media, we should talk about building them building it for future. What's important for me there, how they affect people's education. This is the mission of public media. We've got different media with different views. That's natural. That happens in every democracy. Have a look at the US, which is so polarized as Poland, but they've got CNN and they've got Fox News. These are private stations. They can show whatever they wish. That's the freedom of media. But public media should be a place that satisfies the educational, cultural, informative mission. They are the place that provides space for symmetrism or showing different opinions. I believe that when we are talking about how the media should look like, we need to talk about journalists' ethics and the values the media should develop. One thing is new technologies and talking how to build such TV or develop TVP. I don't think we should close it. We should reform it. This is a TV that's been operating since the communist time. Obviously, it has lots of negative aspects, but that can be changed. You can provide space for the media that would be ones that build trust and pluralism for other private media that would be able to provide space for trust. I believe media needs to communicate simpler. If we want to reach people, we need to build quality TV, public media, but we need to understand the vast majority of the public will require dances and trash TV, as we would name it, but through such dances, we can deliver lots of information values that are significant for us. So we should see the creation of such programs in a different way. A couple of years ago, I attended an attempt to develop a EU TV, and there was an attempt to create something on a platform on the net, selection of channels. It is happening. You've got this great example from the BBC, which has lots and lots of fact checkers. They have great anti-disinformation activities. They show the truth, driving crazy both parties in the UK. So when we try to show disinformation narrative, we cooperate with experts from the UK and the US. A couple of years ago, somebody presented me some news from TVP about abortion. I said we couldn't believe it, and the British man couldn't believe that public media disseminate disinformation. There, nobody cares if BBC is liked or not. There is no disinformation.
Yes, everybody seems to agree here, because doing away with TVP or public media, well, I like this comparison with pre-high schools. So it would be similar mechanism. Let's change the nameplate and we blew into the space the previous solution. The question is, what is public media? It's very much up to date. We live in the world where we have no problem accessing information, but more of a quality of the media or the abundance of the media. How great is the information noise? The 24-hour news TV, it's a brand new concept kind of. the Gulf War, the World Trade Center assault, and similar. But it shouldn't be the role of the public television. And speaking about public media, I think the solution might be the fact that they have to be counteracting to private media, one television station chasing each other in the news domain, trying to outstrip one another, because the internet development speed up and the form it has been, there'll be no problem with getting the right info. There'll be the greater need of better information, more profound. It wouldn't be a task for public media from the point of view of the rule of law, that is my domain. So the way the media informs, including the robust professional ones. Well, jumping from one piece of news to the other without any context. Sometimes there is information about another complaint, the committee charges somebody some kind of charge is suspended again. Abundance of news, but they do not create a specific picture, not connected. What the Commission is calling upon whom and what is the association with the previous ones. This is one of the main fields of dispute, so it's difficult to return to the information on the rule of law and court system from the start in a neutral way. Whereas this neutrality is the question. This is in greater demand rather than another news TV, another chase after news. And the latest one, in-depth and contextualization presentation. The theme of tournaments, dances and singing is very interesting, because every year we are shocked when there is the New Year's Eve of your dream. It was Kurski's idea, don't know whether it works still. But it had very important position, because they checked it with advertisers, and for a week before this there's been lots of news. The truth is that, you know, everybody's thinking that they were bathing in champagne 10 minutes before the midnight, yet vast majority of the general public selected this place. So this is the situation when TVP organizes the event that creates a unity, of course, in this peace-type version. And the main topic is whether there is a rainbow flag, how to protect it, how to check what musicians have on the soles of their shoes so that to avoid the problematic symbols like the rainbow. But if we put aside the things that are the results of disgusting witch hunts by the public television, is the fact that, for example, TVN does not organize New Year's Eve, because the vast majority has no need to show how ambitious they were, how cultural and highbrow they are, and they'd be listening to classics or something else. And this creative unity, creative function around Sławomir, Zenek and Marela is actually happening. I'm not convinced that TVP should avoid this. That there are only serious things. Russia does it very well. If we look at what is happening at the percentage of Russians who support war in Ukraine, a large part of Russian society has been shaped by a specific use of media in Russia. Pomerantsev writes about it in his book. He's been working on creating public media for long, and he said how they were using this kind of lowbrow culture to shape the media, the mass culture to impact people. It's pretty old. The call for bread and games.
Political influence on your media landscape and on the media companies, for example. And my question would be, actually, it's the question that you asked, Piotr, as well. What would be a good system? Like, what would be an example of ensuring that politicians don't have direct influence on the media company? How can we actually build a healthy, gap between the two?
No, niegdyś
Back then in Poland, like in many countries, there used to be a situation that politicians have no direct access to a microphone. They cannot quarrel with the viewers. There is an intermediary, that is the journalist. So the only direct form is the address, public address that has been reserved for specific posts, the highest positions in the country, the highest representatives. It's a very simple method. We know why this method is good, because public media do not serve the purpose of the party's campaign. They do not trigger divisions. What is important is that public media management, or the management of the media that sees influence of inhabitants of the country, is done through journalists. Even if the National Broadcasting Board is composed of politicians, anything that is below the National Broadcasting Board should be managed collectively, not only by those elected in the democratic procedure. Public trust is the basis, and the word trust is the key word here. It's difficult to get detached from this model where we had Polish television, Polish radio that has continued for many years. Well, it doesn't have to continue the same form. BBC has ongoing activities to imagine itself as a public broadcaster in the future by doing workshops with high school students. They are supposed to draw, to program, to code, to come up with ideas on what they want to watch. What we are speaking about, access to the media, we can see that public media are mainly watched by the people who have no other access to information. The younger the cohort is, the higher the education is, the higher the income is, the bigger the city is compared to small villages located far from the city centers, the smaller the impact of public media. If you ask who watches public media back in 2015, before PIS being the ruling party, before the host bosses, we would say we don't even watch this New Year's Eve fiesta. So the media has to be created this way. Well, it's not like us creating the media out now, but the media should be created so that it fulfills the needs of less well-off, less educated, and those who are unable to assess sources of information. Public media are supposed to equalize everybody's chance. They need to have the format to reach everybody. I know it sounds idealistic, but you need to do it this or that way. But what is key is the element that Maia mentioned. Journalists are free market people, so they don't observe globally. They do not observe the ethical code. They are not organized into the milieus that imposes the value network. So the ruling party propagandist and the man who is the end of a marketing process is also called a journalist. The latter one just forwards the information from PR sections or other commercial sections. So, for the last dozens of years, we were unable to instill self-limitation on journalists, to create ethical codes, so that the objective is to build social trust, robust information, and robust way this kind of profession is exercised. In addition to excellent examples of private or civic media playing the public role, we can see journalists being media workers or kind of propaganda apparatus employees of any propaganda. It's not PIS only. Journalists should have the right to have their own opinions, but we should know what they are. I'm listening to you and we are kind of concluding. Retain public television, public media. And we are speaking about this option when TVP in its present version ceases to exist. Otherwise, there's a question, will we have Hungarian example? Our friends in Hungary had a similar portal to ours. They had wonderful results and they had to close it up because people stopped paying, and they had journalistic investigation that was great. Or the other variant, the opposition wins, which is not excluded. Many people believe this will not happen. This may happen. What's next? We have to see the new world. We have to leave this kind of huge organism concept to create more specialized units. I would defend TVP Info, maybe with a different name, but the channel of commons, public debate, without politicians, if possible, so that we don't have so many talking heads. But culture, sport, entertainment, yes please, but entertainment that comes with a pinch of reflection, what is good, what is bad, with silly things, but a discussion about it. What I said before, this recruitment of people to work there would have to be conditioned. It have to be clear that people who understand the mission of public media are enrolled, are signed in, what to do to make it attractive, to make it cost money, and not to be commercial at the same time, so they wouldn't fight for advertisement and all the junk that is associated with this combat. It's even more difficult than detachment from politics. But we've got the concept of splitting up public media. And there is the need to have them. There's a great need to have public media. It's my dream. If we are speaking about something, if we are to build something, we need to create a vision, the mission. Beata, you said a lot about it. Speaking about media, it's my dream to have public media as a space where that is trusted by citizens. So in this entanglement of information, disinformation, lack of knowledge, there is some more science, critical thinking, media literacy, and people learn if they are scared by something, disinformation is included. They can return. They can open up TVP on the internet to verify the information, to check whether it is true. I'd like to reach this kind of point with pluralism, with us to be able to have disputes. People will be polarized, but we can sit and talk about different opinions. But we can't say, no, I won't sit at the table, because we need space to discuss in Poland. We'd like to create this kind of media. If we realize this dream, we've already started doing things like your round table, but we should do it in a strategic way, because there are tools and options, ethics that should be introduced. Let's not stick to the names. There's no traditional media conglomerate, and we need to be able to assess it. And if we can't, we can be manipulated, or we can break or manipulate any rule of law. Yes, education. I agree with you that media reform should start with the reform of education. So we should start the reform of education by taking a step back to what Czarnek did and his predecessor, to the education system and the curricula, because these things go hand in hand. If we don't teach about civic education, digital education, thinking, critical thinking, it goes hand in hand. All these reforms that were instilled by peace creates uncritical society that sucks propaganda in without questioning it. Can we do anything? We are running out of time. Civic media boards that have the representation. If media create unity, they need to show pluralism. They need to show people and create people and be created by people. There must be a diversity of people working in newsrooms, working in the background. And the last thing that I want to say quickly.
Życie i zdrowie kobiety jest najważniejsze.
Stop kryminalizacji aborcji.
Kobieta decyduje.
Dzień dobry. Pan Zbigniew Hołdys.
Zgadza się. Dla znajomych Zbyszek.
Serio? Zbyszek. Nadchodzące wybory są zbyt ważne, żeby zostawić je bez kontroli. Dołącz do obywatelskiej kontroli wyborów. Zróbmy wybory bez picu.